praise your name. Lechi lach, to the place that I will show you. Lesimchat chaim, lesimchat chaim, lesimchat chaim, lechi lach. And you shall be a blessing, you shall be a blessing, you shall be a blessing. Lechi lach.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone, and welcome from all of us at Westchester Reform Temple. We're so glad you joined us to celebrate Shabbat. I'm Rabbi David Levy, and I'm joined in the leadership of our service by Cantor Danielle Rodnitsky, and I must say that there is so much going on in the world this week, and so much for us to consider and remember. For starters, as of today, 86,166,713 people have voted thus far, pointing to one of the highest voter turnout rates in 100 years. This past Tuesday, we marked the second anniversary of the Pittsburgh Tree of Life Synagogue Massacre, and we will remember those that died during Kaddish. Not to mention, tomorrow is Halloween, and I have a Halloween, very silly, for us to enjoy later. And that's also why I'm wearing my orange tie. Last but not least, our Torah portion this week is Lech Lecha, the portion that introduces us to our ancestor Abram, or as he becomes known, Abraham, and his mission to make our world a more just and moral place. Thank you, Cantor, for starting the service with Lechi Lach, Debbie Friedman's retelling of the meaning of this parsha. We are now all invited to bring some of Abraham's light and strength into our own homes as we kindle the lights of Shabbat.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Now that we've brought in the light, let us raise our voices in strength and solidarity. that we've gotten ourselves warmed up, we welcome the Shabbat bride with Lecha Dodi. we've welcomed our Shabbat bride, we continue with our call to worship the Baruch Hu. If you would like to rise in body or in spirit, you are invited to do so now.
Ahavat Olam, the prayer that we would be offering right now, is all about how God shows God's love for us. Our tradition believes God shows that love through the rules that God gives us, the Torah. And that is the way God expresses that love. And I was thinking about that as I thought about some words that Rabbi Jack Stern Jr. of blessed memory offered 32 years ago in 1988 on the eve of a presidential election. Because in his words, I heard the way in which we show our love for our country. As he wrote, in the memoirs of some early 20th century Jews on the Lower East Side, they write about the simple act of casting a ballot. Many of them would go to the election booth in suit and tie, as though going to synagogue, as though this act of voting were a blessing from God, as though the obligation to perform this act was a mitzvah, a sacred act, a sacred obligation in the voting booth in the new land of promise. By voting, we are saying how much we love our country by voting our values and what we care about. So I hope if you have not early voted yet, I did on Monday, as did Cantor. I hope that you'll take your opportunity to vote either by mail or by going in person on Tuesday or before. Baruch atah Adonai ohev amo Yisrael.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem, Kevod Malchuto, Leolam Vahen. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha, V'chol vavcha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol meodecha, v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom levavecha, v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam, v'shivtecha b'beitecha u'v'nektecha b'aderech u'v'shokbecha u'v'kumecha. Ukshartam leot aliatecha, vehayu letotafot beinenecha, uktavtam al mezuzot beitecha, uvisharecha. Leman tizkeru vasitem et kol mitzvotai, vitem kedoshim lelohechem. Ani Adonai Elohechem, Asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim, liot lachem le'Elohim. Ani Adonai Elohechem. We're about to offer Micha Mocha, which speaks about the change we want to see in the world. One thing I want to change is my misspeaking that I offered earlier. Thank you to Bob Miller, who offered me that gentle reminder of the things that I spoke wrong about, so that it is too late to vote by mail. But if you have a mail-in ballot, you can bring it into the County Board of Elections and drop it off there. Or you can vote in person on early voting up till Sunday, and then once again in person on Tuesday. Thank you to Bob, and I pass to you, Cantor, to offer our song of freedom.
May we walk hand in hand or hand with ballot to that voting booth, just as our ancestors walked through to the shore, the other side of the sea. כיפת אדוני את יעקב, וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו. ברוך אתה אדוני, גאל ישראל. understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Hashkiveinu, Adonai Eloheinu. Hashkiveinu leshalom. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. V'shameru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat la'asot et HaShabbat לדורותם ברית עולם ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש. We rise for the Amidah in body or in spirit. Adonai svatai tiftach. Adonai svatai tiftach. Ufi yagid tehilatecha. Ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai svatai tiftach. Adonai svatai tiftach. Ufi yagid tehilatecha. Ufi yagid tehilatecha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher Chasdei Avot V'Imahot, U'Mevi Geula Livnei V'neihem, Le'man Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham Ve'ezrat Sarah, אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע. משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש. We now take a few moments for silent prayer and reflection. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו, יעשה שלום עלינו, עושה שלום במרומיו.
I think the best way to describe the conversation that we had was maybe a spirited discussion. Kate and I were debating what to do about school this year.
Do we send our children to a hybrid plan, or do we hunker down and try to do everything virtually? What do we lose? What do we gain? This conversation sadly never ends. It just evolves. The latest iteration is about tomorrow, where we are being told that the highest risk thing that we can do is to go trick-or-treating. I remember as a kid, the highest risk at trick-or-treating was making sure none of the candy had been opened already. So our debate continues as we made a plan for us to observe this most American of days tomorrow, which does not include any trick-or-treating, but I think it's a pretty solid plan. I'll let you know what my boys think by the end. Navigating discussions like these are never easy. It's not like there is a right answer here, just an answer that feels less wrong. All of it made me ponder what distinguishes a spirited discussion, as I lovingly called it, from a familial fight or a full-blown argument, things that happen over and over again in the book of Genesis. We've already seen the first one between Cain and Abel that ends in bloodshed. But arguments don't have to be violent. As Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg of blessed memory famously said, you can disagree without being disagreeable. That approach is a core part of our Torah portion, which includes a key argument. Unlike most arguments in the book of Genesis, this one between Abram and Lot, before he gets his name changed to Abraham, ends peacefully. The text teaches Lot, who went with Abraham, had flocks and cattle and tents, and the land did not bear them to dwell together, for their possessions were many, and they could not dwell together. And there was a quarrel between the herdsmen of Abram's cattle and between the herdsmen of Lot's cattle, and the Canaanites and the Perizzites were dwelling in the land. Abram said to Lot, let there be no strife between you and me, between my herdsmen and yours, for we are kinsmen. Is not the whole land before you? Let us separate. If you go north, I will go south. If you go south, I will go north. So Lot chose for himself the whole plain of the Jordan and set out toward the east. The two men parted company. Abram lived in the land of Canaan, while Lot lived among the cities of the plain and pitched his tents near Sodom. Rarely do arguments end so amicably. Before Lot and Abram even have a chance to argue with each other, it's just the arguments amongst their people. Lot and Abram go their separate ways, and their spirited discussion becomes a model for how our rabbis like to think about arguments. First, from Avijah Sforno, who wrote in the 16th century in Italy, he noticed that this argument had an audience. As the text notes, the Canaanites and the Perizzites were then dwelling in the land. And Sforno commented, this is why a quarrel between two brothers who lived side by side was especially embarrassing and harmful to Abraham. When those tribes would see the brothers quarrel, they would assume that neither of them was a peace-loving individual. Sforno reminds us of the power of perception. When arguments move from private to public, the arguments aren't just between two people or groups, but also include the observers of the argument. When acrimony rules between those peoples and groups, our perception of them lowers day after day after day. I venture to say that's part of why the American people hold Congress in such low esteem, carrying an approval rating in the teens and a disapproval rating of above 75%. In the halls of Congress, you see a constant argument with rare and infrequent attempts to make peace. Of course, stopping an argument in process becomes harder the longer it endures. Abraham, nips the argument in the bud and ends the fight immediately with a fair solution that works for both sides, even with some really dark foreshadowing for Lot. The Talmud offers a metaphor as to why that was so successful, quoting the book of Proverbs. The beginning of strife
is as when one releases water, Proverbs teaches us. Base verse, Rav Huna says, this quarrel between people is compared to a split in a hose caused by a burst of water emptying into a field. Once the split in the hose widens, it widens even more and can no longer be repaired. To save the field, the hose must be repaired as soon as it splits. The same is true with regards to a quarrel. It must be stopped as soon as it begins. Rarely do we have the peace of mind to stop an argument at the beginning. This can be for so many reasons. We believe so strongly in our position and can't fathom another perspective. We so want to be right. We often wind up creating more problems than we began with, causing our own internal strife and hurting our cause. Prideful and frustrated, we can't admit that peace is the best option. Peace is the greatest gift that we can have. Flooding the field with our back and forth, as more argumentativeness brings about more arguments. The longer we argue, the more damage we cause, not just to ourselves and our relationships, but to those around us and the very ecosystem that surrounds us. As we prepare to embark on November in just 2 days, and the arguments in our country that are bound to continue bubbling up, may we all be like Abraham and strive for peace amongst the anger. Not to give up on our principles, hard won and hard fought, heaven forbid, but to find a way to disagree without being disagreeable, and to always be striving for peace among people and among ourselves. Amen. A group of people in our community are actively searching for peace, a sense of wholeness, that other meaning of shalom that is the feeling of everything being right in the world. And those are those we love who are in need of healing. We draw their names into our homes and into our hearts. I'm going to offer a few that our congregation is thinking of, but if you have more to add, please put them into the chat in a variety of places, or say them quietly inside your own heart. Know that we're all praying for them. We pray for Mordechai Ben Yaakov, Deborah Kapnick, Nicole Shusi, Amelia Austin, Masha Batsora, Joyce Schertzer, Leah Greenspan, Vivatsila Bat Esther Bela, Dan Sokolov, Jeffrey Millman, Leslie Dubner, Chava Batsara, Eliyahu Chaim Ben Fradel, Sheila Fried, Tanya Romanoff, Yitzchak Yona Ben May, Yaakov Hirsch Ben Rachel, Malka Tzipora Bas Rachel, Tamar Bat Malka, Long Turang, Dan Carver, Heschel Meir Ben David Achana, David Ze'ev Ben Fruma Etzel, Shai Aviad Ben Balfura, Rabbi Eitan Hamerman. And with all those that we've shared aloud and those we're holding within, we turn to the words of Misha Berach.
May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Bless those in need of healing with
Continue with Aleinu. Aleinu לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה לעוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגור עלינו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד. Before we offer Kaddish Tom, a poem that was written immediately following the events in Pittsburgh 2 years ago. Tree of life, revive our souls, enrich our days, entreating your blessings. O God of peace, fill our hearts with comfort, letting your Torah shine in the fullness of our love. Faith in you, our God, eternal source of blessings. Praying for healing in the depths of despair, thanking God for the survivors, thanking God for the first responders. Sorrow crushing our hearts, bereaved beyond belief, united in our love, returning to you in faith. God of Israel, healer of generations. Tree of life, redeemer of Israel, enliven this moment with healing, enliven this moment with hope. O rock of Israel, forget not the Jews of Pittsburgh. Let your love flow in the days ahead for justice and peace everlasting. We begin by remembering those whom we have loved and lost in more recent days, those who we are remembering in the first 4 weeks. Eleanor Kutlich, grandmother of Julianne Rabb, Mordechai Rocklin, uncle of Freddie Finkelstein, Barbara Scharf, wife of Irving Scharf and father of Susan Scharf and Andrew Scharf, Eslyn Bassick, wife of Richard Bassick and mother of Jonathan Bassick and Matthew Bassick, Helen Bader, wife of Robert Bader and stepmother of Randy Wise, Norman Goodfarb, father of Rowena Goodfarb, husband of Rowena Goodfarb and father of Judy Chamlin and Adam Goodfarb. In the yard site, the anniversary of their passing, we remember Melanie Amarillo, Leon Barbanel, Martin Block, David Carlin, Gilbert Cates, Lisa Chinsky, Ruth Chippernoy, Eva Dubrow, Milton Elkin, Sarah Ezra, Patricia Feynman, Kenneth Fieldston, Jeanette Flansbaum, Maxine Friedman, Helen Gordon, Leslie Granitor, Norman Green, Emmerich Gross, Janet Hirschfeld, Carol Kaufman, George Kempler, Paul Kenner, Philip Chrisberg, Lenora Leibstein, Esther Lamb, Perry Pollock, Ira Lee, Jacques Lerner, Bernice Levine, Claire Love, Morris Maltz, Frida Marks, Gail Meyer, Elizabeth Michelle Millman, Muriel Mutterpearl, Henry Pierce, Francis Piper, Esther Perles, Daniel Pollock, Martin Rosenthal, Henry Schwalb, Jack Schwartz, Rosalie Shalmy, Lauren Shapiro, Michael Shears, Howard Silfen, Irene Silfen, Esther Simon, Helen Smith, Maury Ty, Madeline Weinstein, Gussie Wexler, Herman Ziegler, and the victims of the Tree of Life shooting, Joyce Feinberg, Richard Gottfried, Rose Mallinger, Jerry Rabinowitz, Cecil and David Rosenthal, Bernice and Sylvan Simon, Daniel Stein, Melvin Wax, Irving Younger. With those words, names that I've mentioned aloud, and those that we're holding in our hearts, I invite all of us to turn to the words of Kadisha Tom and sanctifying God's name. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, ba'agalau v'zman kari v'imru, Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam u'lamei amaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei d'kudsha b'richu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, damiran be'alma v'imru, Amen. Yehei shlama Rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru, Amen. Osei shalom b'romav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru, Amen.
Etz chaim hi, lama chazikim ba, v'tomecheha meushar, deracheha darchei
Shabbat shalom, everyone. I clearly can tell your passion for voting. I have 3 notes from 3 different people about things that I may have misrepresented about voting, so I'm happy to share those corrections now. Alyssa Baum shared that you can also drop off your absentee ballots at any polling station. Michelle Lowe shared with us that you can also do it even on election day. You can drop off your absentee ballot then. And Eve Landau sent me an email letting us know that ballots can still be mailed as long as they're postmarked before November 3rd, but it's highly not advised. And they can be brought to any voting site. And supposedly, you could read the air quotes in there. If you're over 70, you can move up to the front of the line, although it seems that not a lot of poll workers know that. So that is it on voting. I didn't expect to spend that much time on it, but I guess it is very much on a lot of people's minds this Shabbat. A few things that are upcoming. So for learning, tomorrow morning, I hope that you'll join for Torah study at 9 a.m. for Minyan, and 9:30 for, or 9:30, 9:45, we'll start our learning. If you have been at our Understanding the Image of God series, the first 2 sessions have already happened in partnership with Machon Hadar, but the 3rd session is going to be this coming Thursday, November 5th at 7:30, by teacher Rabbi Avi Killip, who I've learned with at Hadar and is fantastic. You need to pre-register via the e-blast. If you have been impacted by a bereavement, Wednesday, November 4th at 6 p.m., we invite you into a Zoom room with Jane Slevin and Cantor Laura Stein, a bat bait of our congregation, to process those feelings and that pain that comes with that. Please RSVP to Suzanne Saperstein if you are interested in doing that. Rabbi Blake on next Sunday, and I saw that he's on Facebook Live, so he can add anything he wants to what I'm saying now into that forum. He is leading a post-election forum on Sunday, November 8th at 11 a.m. via Zoom. Register in advance, and if you have questions you want to submit in advance, please do so by noon on November 6th to office at WR Temple. Sponsored by the Freebirds, but open to the whole congregation. And again, pre-registration, you can find all that in the e-blast. Then, Cantor Rodnitsky, tell us about our music series.
Amazing. So we have some wonderful instrumental music offerings that are happening in person on campus with required pre-registration because we have very limited seating in our heated and lit tent in the CJL patio. We have our wonderful pianist and music director, Pete Malinverni, is doing an album release with a wonderful violinist with whom he has partnered. That's the first event. And then I believe our second event is with one of our regular WRT guitarists, Oren Nyman, I think is how we say his last name. And he is bringing along a trio or a few different musicians who are going to help play instrumentally Yiddish Fiddler, which was a show that he worked with. And so these are going to be really beautiful, wonderful events. There's more information in the e-blast and maybe in the upcoming bulletin, although probably not because it'll be over by then. So check your e-blasts, email Cantor Kleinman or me, and we'd be happy to provide you with additional information, and make sure to pre-register.
So there's a lot happening while Cantor leads us in Kiddush, and then we'll bless my Halloween. Sorry, it's horrible. I'm going to invite everyone who is joining us via Zoom to lift up their cup of joy along with Cantor and myself.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit ki hu yom techila lemikra kodesh zecher litziat Mitzrayim kivanu v'acharta ve'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim ve'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh hashabbat.
Amen.
L'chaim.
L'chaim. Thank you, Chip, for that beautiful amen. And so this is a 3-part, my whole family effort. So I made the dough, Kate turned it into a pumpkin-shaped challah, and the kids did the icing, which they were really unhappy they didn't get to eat, but they'll get to eat it eventually. So with all that said, if you have someone next to you, put your arms around them as we offer motzi together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz.
Amen.
Amen. Patei avon. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. It's Bob's latest bread.
Wow.
Oh, what did you make, Bob?
A grill pan.
What is it?
It's a French bread, one quarter whole wheat.
Oh, looks delicious.
I bake bread every 2 days or so.
I do the same.